2, part 5. Gee, this is dragging out. Okay, so we see Angus Stewart from the Australian Royal Commission asked what would be done if there was someone who alleged they'd been sexually abused, but it was only their testimony and there was no confession. But the elders hearing the allegation are totally persuaded that the person is telling the truth. Brother Jackson was asked what would happen then, what would be done. And here's another dodgy answer from Brother Jackson. He says, that's correct, yes. So there is a process, and I think at the moment we are in the process of adjusting some of our policies. So that's why it's a good time for this Royal Commission. Okay, so he refers to a process but couldn't say what it was. Perhaps there isn't a process. There is no protection. They haven't thought about it. I don't know. One other point, I've sort of got to the end of what I'd like to quote there from the transcript, but there was one point that was brought out. Angus Stewart asked if, you know how there's the need for the requirement for 2 witnesses. He asked whether corroborating evidence could be used as the second witness, and he suggested that the trauma to the victim could be considered as that corroborating evidence. And you know, if they're obviously traumatised and very upset, that gives credence to their allegation of being sexually abused. And I'll just see if I can find what yeah, got the comment here. So Angus Stewart's asked, well, I think it's him, or might have been the chair, what about the trauma, evident trauma of the survivor? Would that be able to be taken into account as corroborating evidence? And Brother Jackson says, yes, it would need to be taken into account. And if I could mention, Mr. Stewart, these are the things that we're interested in following up on after the Royal Commission, just to make sure that everything is... Oh, and it ends there. Okay, so that will be interesting to see if there's any introduction into the instructions the elders have that allows them to take into consideration the trauma of the victim and consider that as a second witness. Because remember that for judicial action in the congregation to be taken against someone accused of child sexual abuse, there has to be a second witness to the abuse, or the abuser has to confess. And in the absence of either of those, then the elders take it no further. They leave it in Jehovah's hands. They still report it to the branch, but there's no action. You know, the accused cannot be reproved or disfellowshipped. They'd obviously keep an eye on him, but still no one in the congregation would be warned. And in fact, it seems what's been happening over the decades is that if a victim discusses her abuse with others in the congregation when there hasn't been a witness and the person hasn't confessed to it, then they themselves could be accused of slandering that brother who remains in good standing. So it's just a horrible situation for those victims. Anyway, so I did notice too, another point here, in the new 2016 letter to the body of elders, which replaces the 2012 one regarding instructions on child sexual abuse, there was a section in that letter under the heading Spiritual Assistance. So I looked to see if there was any mention of this footnote in the God's Love book there, and how victims and their guardians should be shown the need to report to the authorities, because other people might be at risk, other children might be at risk as well. And there seems to be no mention of that, so they haven't put that instruction in there. So although the organisation seems to have tidied up some of their instructions a little bit, like they've actually put it in writing now, in the letter, the new letter, I believe, that a child abuse victim does not have to face the alleged abuser in front of the men of the Judicial Committee. They can actually make the allegation in writing. And apparently that has been a verbal instruction given from the service desk for some time, but it wasn't in writing. And I think this is a problem that was brought out during the whole hearing, that a lot of the advice given from the service desk wasn't in print. And the information that's provided to the elders is a little bit from here and there and all over the place. It's not all consolidated into one document, which on a serious matter like this, perhaps it should be. So there's a lot of improvements that need to be made, and of course, you know, the two-witness rule is just dreadful. You know, the sad case is that the way the policies stand at the moment, paedophiles are enabled, and there's not, you know, the sanctions are very weak. So let's hope that we see some changes. But anyway, I wanted to talk about this. I mean, I've probably gone on about it too much, but the matter that was of interest to me was that supposedly elders could follow their own consciences, and I'm sure that a lot of elders who have handled these cases have felt tied to the instructions given in the manual and by the service desk, and have not felt free to follow their conscience and report. And I know elders that have done it anonymously. They've not done it on behalf of the organisation. So it's time that changed. And maybe we will see that happen. I hope so. But anyway, the whole point, I guess, of this series of 5 videos, and now my voice is going, is that as dedicated Christians, we are not actually free to follow our conscience. We have to stick to the dictates of the governing body, and people are afraid to express any view that differs from what the governing body have printed. So anyway, if you've got any comments to make about any of this, please put them in the comments below, and if I think of anything else, I'll just add it into the comments myself. Okay, bye.